He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will be your host once again. I am with the rest of the Munsons. I want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. James.
What's going on, man? Just excited to be here. Miss you guys.
Oh, miss you too, James.
Oh, that's the only update we needed. That's cute. Case, what's going on in your world, man?
I've circled back around feeling like my movie theme a few weeks ago, a few podcasts ago, of Stuck in the Same Time is now I'm going back to the disaster film theme, and I've been watching a lot more of those, and one of these days I'm going to be excited to talk about Armageddon and cut that up with Warren and see if we can get into some oil digging.
Very true to form is what I've heard.
Yeah.
We don't
It's a documentary, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Ben Affleck's already given the DVD commentary. That's all you need on Armageddon. Well, speaking of Warren.
This past week for prep and everything, I've been really reluctant to watch a lot of Natasha Lyonne stuff because I'm trying to finish The Sopranos for the first time, and I have 5 episodes left, and so I really don't want to be talking about this, and just want to finish that show. And
very good show.
Being a guy who I don't really care. I've seen enough mafia movies and stuff like that, and I'm married to a very large Italian family. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this is my favorite TV show, and
nice.
Wow. There's quite a few people who said it would be, and I did not want to believe them, and I didn't want to let them down, but it really is. And Janice Soprano sucks ass.
It's so good. I'm glad to have you as part of the family now.
Thank you.
Rigby.
Yeah, just the same old. Working from home, playing golf in my free time. That's kind of a good excuse about being out of New York City and being back in Iowa. You get a little bit more money in the pocket, not having to pay rent on a shitty studio apartment. So I'm enjoying it. Hopefully things will change here shortly. I have a good idea about that.
A lot of pent-up demand for a bunch of middle-aged men to be golfing with their underwear halfway squished up their ass.
Yep. Goofy pants a fat ass, as Happy Gilmore says.
Talk to my neighbor. Huge ass.
Probably a great golfer.
Probably a great golfer.
That's beautiful. I'm excited to formally introduce our first female guest to the Munsons at the Movies. Some claps in the background there. Yeah. No pressure, Cori. But Cori, so we've got Cori Wallace with us. She's still a 12-year-old latchkey kid with beyond basic cable in an adult woman's body. I will tell you, Cori, this is probably the most creative bio that somebody's given us yet, so I appreciate you. She once set her alarm at 3 a.m. to get up and watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Please don't tell her parents. She only dates guys who watch at least 3 movies a week, and at least is underlined, so that's important. It's definitely the minimum. She loves a good deep dive or think piece and is a fan of this podcast. Welcome, Cori.
Thank you. I'm psyched to be here. I will say, bio is written that way because I'm in the biz. I work in PR and marketing, so I cheated a little bit.
Sweet. Where do you live, Cori?
I live in Kansas City.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Midwest.
The Midwest is the best.
Midwest is the best. For real. Actually, I'm a Kansas girl, so I was born in Lawrence, Kansas, on the University of Kansas campus.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Rock Chalk, for real.
Cori's pumped because she seems to know a little bit about the actor we're covering on this episode, so I think it's going to be a good conversation. Birthdays, July 2nd. Warren, what do we got?
We're going to start off with this classic, Lindsay Lohan from The Parent Trap.
Pride of Long Island.
The Parent Trap, Mean Girls, and Lindsay Lohan's Indian Journey.
That's a thing?
Yep.
Oh my God. All right.
36.
Yeah, this is a tough one because she was in stuff when she was like such a little kid. I'm going to go.
Time has not been kind to Lindsay.
I'm going to go 30, 35, Warren.
I think she's our age. I think she's like 33.
I'm going to say 37 then.
Has someone said 34?
Nope.
34.
And Cori with the backdoor win. 34
Oh, nice.
Dot.
Wow.
Proud of you.
All right, next up, we got Larry David, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and The Three Stooges.
Problem is, he just looks really old, and
Yeah.
he's looked really old forever, so it's hard to tell.
It's true.
He's I'm going to say 74.
Oh, I was going to say 74, so I'll say 73.
66.
68.
I'll say 70.
73, Rigby.
Oh,
That was Kyle. I took that.
I've won away both times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Struggle.
You just want to think, like, how old is Bernie Sanders? He's just a little bit younger. So that's how you usually go. Last up, we got Margot Robbie, Birds of Prey, I, Tonya, and Suicide Squad.
That's the poop out of the
That is the worst. That is seriously the worst one of like her entire filmography.
preview of our Margot Robbie episode.
I'm going to go 31, Warren.
Give me 32.
34, same age as Lindsay Lohan.
I'll go 30. The odds are slim, but
The number is 30.
Wow.
God!
She turned 30.
That's crazy.
Happy birthday to all you people.
All right, so we had 5 actors we were looking at for this episode. They were all tossed on the wheel from our super mega list of actors. Those actors were James Spader, Rooney Mara, Ed Harris, Anthony Mackie, and Natasha Lyonne. And as we mentioned in some of our warm-up conversations, if you listened to the Jimon Hansu episode, you'll know that everybody was ecstatic and overwhelming. They were overwhelmed with excitement to cover Natasha Lyonne, and that's who we're hitting this week.
By far our favorite choice.
You know who you are.
The wheel hath spoken.
The wheel hath spoken. But we're going to get into some Natasha Lyonne discussion, and I'll preface this before we talk about trivia. Fascinating human with a really, really interesting career. I know I'm throwing out a lot of Trumpisms right now. Fascinating, absolutely incredible.
Nobody does it better.
But she's got a career. So I have a feeling James has got some pieces to work with in the trivia world.
Yeah,
so James,
absolutely.
It's all yours too.
Cool. So we're going to do 2 truths and a lie here. You guys know the game at this point. So I'll get right to it. First fact. Grandparents were both Holocaust survivors. Her parents were actually born in Israel, and she actually lived there for some time before she started her acting career. Fact number 2. She was once evicted from an apartment building that was owned by the actor Michael Rappaport. Fact number 3. She's had open heart surgery.
Jeez.
Oh, that's an easy one for me.
That's an easy one for me too.
The lie is she got evicted because everybody knows Michael Rappaport hates Vin Diesel, and he evicted Vin Diesel.
we know the answer.
Yeah, I'm going 2 as well.
I'm going to go Israel one as a lie because I think that's Gal Gadot.
I'm going to go with that too.
That's
the first one's a lie.
That's very possible.
Fact number 3 is the one no one chose. Fact number 3 is true. She actually did have open heart surgery. That was in 2012. That was to correct some damage from heart infection that she had a few years earlier, which we'll actually end up covering. It's the same surgery one of her characters underwent in Orange is the New Black. Fact number 2 is in fact true. She was once evicted from an apartment building owned by Michael Rappaport. It happened in 2005. It was the same year she was admitted to Beth Israel Hospital for collapsed lung and heart infection. And we'll get into that later as well. And fact number 1 is mostly true, but it's actually a Gal Gadot fact, as Rigby covered. So her parents are Orthodox Jewish. She was raised Orthodox Jewish. Her grandparents are Holocaust survivors, but she's from Long Island. She was raised in Great Neck, New York. She only went to Israel for a little bit, and both of her parents grew up here as well. She ended up living on her own since she was 16. But yeah, Rigby nailed it. Gal Gadot.
Good one, James.
That was good.
Very cool.
I also read that she got kicked out of her high school for selling weed too. So I think that
you know, if you're raised Orthodox, it's very strict religious, and so selling weed is like you might as well be thrown in jail. And so getting kicked out of school for that is not a shock.
Case snapshot box office history. What we got?
You know, not a ton of data. She's got a lot of movies that they didn't report the budget or a lot of the different things. So I thought she would have been a fan favorite. But if you average up the, I think, 15 movies I have in my database, she ranks 12th out of the 13 actors we've looked at in fan rankings. Her fan rankings is only 57.8. I thought she would have kind of a real following, and they really would have been behind a lot of her projects. But she ranked lower than I thought. American Pie made 20 times its budget. It was budgeted at $11 million, and it ended up bringing home $235.
Nice.
You total those movies up, they budgeted $91 million, and then they ended up making $758 million out of those three movies total, right? Do you guys want to guess what the average fan rating of those three movies is?
My assumption's bad.
85.
I think it's high. I think it's in the 70s.
The average fan rating of the American Pie trilogy is 64, but yet it still made, $758 million.
Well, and that explains the 15 million spinoffs of the American Pie universe.
That it made a lot of money.
Yeah, everyone saw it.
Thanks, Case. Before we dig into her filmography and some of her TV show work, it's important to note she got her start in 1986. So we're talking 35 years of work and over 100 projects. So of all the actors we've covered, and we've covered some pretty major actors, Oscar award-winning actors, she is by far the busiest actor we've covered to this point. So we're going to hit the highs and the lows along the way. And if you're listening and you're hoping for that one shout out for the movie from 1997 that is that cult classic that you loved and we don't hit it, we apologize in advance. There's just a lot to hit because she's been pretty busy in her 35-year career. But it all got started on Pee-wee's Playhouse. In 1986, she was on 6 episodes as a child actor, played a character named Opal. That's where she got started, which is an interesting way to break into the biz. But we see 7 years later, she is in what I would consider a pretty major motion picture, and that's Dennis the Menace. She played a character named Polly.
She also makes out with Buzz from Home Alone. That's her boyfriend in the movie. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to highlight in that. That is the only other movie that I can tell that Buzz is in.
Yeah, I saw an interview where she mentioned that was on-screen kiss was in Dennis the Menace.
He's in Nebraska. He was in
Nebraska. That's right. Yeah.
He's the son.
Never saw Nebraska. The funniest thing that I remember was when Super Troopers came out, a bunch of people, there was a rumor, someone started a rumor that Farva was Buzz grown up.
Early in her career, not terribly busy. She had 2 other small parts in some other projects. But 1996 is when she hit it big in her first feature film, and that was Everyone Says I Love You. And Craig has that one this week.
Everyone Says I Love You is a Woody Allen comedy and musical from 1996. I am not much of a musical person. Like James has talked about in a couple of the previous episodes, that was just not a movie that 20-year-old Craig really enjoyed watching. And I think 40-year-old Craig enjoyed it a lot more. Everything that's gone on with Woody Allen and just the passage of time, it's kind of easy to forget how big of a heavyweight he was in the industry around this time. I mean, listen to this cast. Nearly every person in this was in their prime. Edward Norton, Drew Barrymore, Alan Alda, Natalie Portman, Goldie Hawn, Julia Roberts.
Holy moly.
Kind of a weird plot line tied to Tim Roth. Floored me when I was watching this movie because somebody new would come on the screen. And you're like, holy cow, that's crazy that all these people did this movie. Natasha Lyonne was in this. She was only 16 or 17 when this movie was filmed. The movie didn't do well in the box office. I think it lost in the neighborhood of 30 million. And it was, however, a critical success. This is easily one of the most complicated plot structured movies that I have seen in a long time. The one plot that stood out the most to me, and I'm glad it did because it relates most to this podcast, is the one that is most reliant on Natasha Lyonne. She plays a massive role in this movie. I think Woody Allen, Goldie Hawn, and maybe Julia Roberts. Well, I think those 3 have the most screen time, and probably Alan Alda. To me, it's Natasha Lyonne's character who is moving the plot forward and is, in my opinion, the most critical role, which is pretty crazy if you think about she's 16 years old at the time when this movie's coming out. So DJ is trying to help her dad find true love. There's all these trials and failures, and so finally Julia Roberts' character gets introduced to the movie. She's playing a character named Vaughn, and DJ has this inside track on how to feed her dad information to get Julia Roberts' character to fall in love with him. It wasn't a terrible watch. It was good, and I didn't enjoy the musical side of it. Woody Allen did not tell the people that were playing in this movie that it was going to be a musical. It freaked Drew Barrymore out because she told Woody Allen, I can't do this because I don't even sing in the shower. Her singing parts are the only ones that are dubbed. Everybody else sang their own part. It's not anything I would have sought out if it weren't for this podcast. I thought Lyonne was great in this movie. You know, like I said, only being 16 or 17 when it was filming, and she's trading shots with some heavyweights. I mean, those actors and actresses I talked about, I mean, those guys are at the top of their game.
One thing I saw about this movie, because I haven't actually seen this movie, but in doing some research on her, a lot, a consistent theme that would pop up is she's got a very dark sense of humor, and ever from a young age, because she was living on her own, she was kind of wise beyond her years. And it came to fruition in this movie when she didn't want people coming in and out of her dressing room. And so she put a sign up that said, no one's allowed in the 16-year-old's dressing room. That includes you, Woody. And dude, everyone's like, are we supposed to laugh at that? And she's like, yeah, my humor's not really been understood ever since I was a little kid.
Damn, she's spot on though.
Yeah, dude, she took shots at him when she was 16 years old.
Yeah, I've seen this film, and I do like musicals. I think it's interesting that Woody Allen is the only person who, at the stage of these people's careers, could get them to sing. I mean, the thought of Edward Norton singing or Natasha Lyonne singing, these people are not singers. Julia Roberts sings in this film. I think it's so interesting to me that she plays the sister of both Drew Barrymore and Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman goes on, about the same age. Natalie Portman goes on to have a strong career, goes to Harvard, sails off into winning a ton of awards, getting, cast in a lot of really choice roles, into a leading lady. And Natasha's career just doesn't go in that direction. It's fascinating to me how that happened. They're both two Jewish women from the New York area. They both are extremely well-versed in sets and performance as young people. And one of them survived and thrived, and one of them had a bumpier path. It's fascinating to me. But I only moderately like this movie because I have this theory that most Woody Allen films are like Nancy Meyers films, but for dudes and in New York. So, beautiful set. You've got a lot of wealthy people with no real issues. Drew Barrymore's biggest problem is she going to get engaged with the Harry Winston ring? Like, it's very fantasy, right? So for me, it's just the same as a Nancy Meyers film, and it's escapist, humor, and it's an escapist male fantasy, which is fine. It's all good, but it's not his best work. I certainly like other films better, but she's darling in this movie. She's really likable, and she's very straightforward in this role and very kind of catty and petty. She speaks the truth. She's definitely the truth speaker in the film, and kind of takes the air out of her siblings and her parents. Yes, which I really appreciate. You can tell that's her. That's very likely her personality. That makes it fun to watch.
I was going to say, when you were comparing Natalie Portman to Natasha, I think it's clear that Portman got the Jar Jar Binks boost. That's what sets them apart.
Normally what we do when we bring on a guest, once we hit the 5 categories, we give our guests the opportunity to pick a different film from their filmography, and Cori went with Slums of Beverly Hills, which we're not used to having back-to-back reviews, but in this timeline, 96 to 98, there really wasn't any other projects in between. So we're pretty much going right to her next major role. Cori, tell us a little bit about it.
So Slums of Beverly Hills was released in the summer of 98, and I was actually really shocked that this was not her first film. When I saw that it was Everyone Says I Love You, I was really surprised because this film could have been and probably should have been her breakout role. It was distributed by Fox Searchlight, which might have been reason why it didn't break out. It box office did about $5.5 million. The budget was about that. So it really didn't make any money. I remember watching it that year, like in 1998. I was in college. I remember thinking it was smart and interesting. It was directed by Tamara Jenkins and written by her. And it has very much like a female perspective. And the perspective is of Vivian Abramowitz, or Viv, as she's sometimes called. This has a stacked cast. It has a great, great cast. Alan Arkin, David Krumholtz, who's just delightful. He sings a version of Luck Be a Lady in this film. And it is hysterical. Marissa Tomei plays the role that she's really good at playing, kind of the kooky, kind of aunt cousin character. Carl Reiner plays their Uncle Mickey. The story of this movie is the story of a family that just can't seem to get their stuff together. Their dad, played by Alan Arkin, is definitely kind of a shyster. He's a salesman who's just always waiting for the next big sale, always going to get them to not having to worry about money or where they're living, and is certainly living in a fantasy world. He moves them to Beverly Hills, and this is set in the 70s. So the clothes and kind of the look and feel of this film is very 70s, very retro. You just kind of see this family just band-aiding their way through bullet hole after bullet hole, trying to keep life on track, as is, I think probably reflected in her life. Vivian, the lead character, her perspective is that of someone who just looks around at all of these trash people who continually disappoint her. She's constantly having to kind of keep her life moving forward. Her brother, the guy that she has a crush on, her own body disappoints her. She's developing quickly. Her aunt disappoints her. Her dad disappoints her. It's just one big disappointment show, but it's really entertaining. I really, really love this movie. I think it's a really straightforward, perspective of a young woman growing up. It's clearly directed by a female, written by a woman. I don't know. It's just a cool film. It's a cool little film. It's a tight 91 minutes. It's typical 1990s independent film length. You get in, you get out. It's a really, really nice watch. I really enjoy it. I will say don't watch it with your parents because it's a little raunchy at times. There's definitely sexuality in this film. I was shocked to see that she did win a Teen Choice Award for breakout performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? She won there were some Independent Spirit Awards, which is definitely where this film should live, is in that independent spirit of the 90s. She is really, really funny in this and really, really dry and witty. You definitely feel like it's an authentic portrayal of her experience growing up.
What is interesting is for her first two roles, it sounds like she did a really damn good job of acting, which I think probably set her up for her big movie role as Jessica in American Pie in 1999. This role just skyrocketed her career. In terms of just awareness and where she was going from there.
I rewatched American Pie just because I was like, well, you know what? This is like a classic, right? And I rewatched it and it's like, there's just so much cringeworthy, unfunny parts of this movie. This movie was very much tailored for a 13-year-old me to find funny. And the 32-year-old me is like, oh, that's just inappropriate. That's not funny.
Yes.
If one of my friends came to me and they were trying to describe what sex was and they were like, oh, dude, just go have sex with a pie, I would have been like, we're no longer friends. I'm telling my parents and we're never going to hang out again. And that's really what the movie is. It's really the shock factor. Unfortunately, I think Natasha Lyonne's role in it was just we got to find a female counterpart to Stifler.
Yeah, but yeah.
Someone to check them.
I bet they had so much other footage of her. And then they're like, nope, got to keep it at type 90. Kids these days, we got to cut stuff. And unfortunately, her stuff was probably on the cutting floor first.
I think the point of her was to show that it wasn't just boys
guys
that were obsessed with sex. It was both ways,
She was one that was Finch was
experience.
Finch was paying her. Yeah. Finch was paying her to
spread the rumors.
Yeah.
they definitely portray her as like the experienced one. Stifler
Right.
is the one who's like the horn dog who can't
Right.
think of anything other than
Right.
having sex. Warren, what you mentioned about the apple pie line, like me and the wifey were watching, and that guy said that, and we both were like, ugh. Like it was like we got punched in the stomach. Like that's just a repulsive thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
How is that the major plot point of this movie?
Yeah, like I think I skipped out on eating like warm desserts for like 2 years after
Yeah.
that.
Ugh, nasty.
Also, 1999, she was in Detroit Rock City as Christine.
She her name in the movie is Christine 16, which is actually the name of a Kiss song. So they want to bring her into as a reference. It's sort of like as a meta reference to their songs.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then also 1999, she was in called Freeway 2: Confessions of a Trick Baby. She plays a character that is referred to as White Girl. Did anybody else see this? Am I the only one?
I've seen Freeway with Reese Witherspoon, right? Has anybody seen that movie?
No.
Okay, so it's this movie where Reese Witherspoon was going to try to be like a darker character, and she literally plays somebody who's Little Red Riding Hood fighting against the big bad wolf, right? That's played by Kiefer Sutherland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was kind of like this play on a fairy tale. It was dark, and she was this contemporary kind of like e-girl fighting back against this predator. And so I could see why Natasha Lyonne's team would be all two people that I'm sure, worked out of a basement. But they were like, you know what, this is a good role for you. This is a darker role. It's, a proven entity. The Reese Witherspoon film didn't do poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this was probably direct to HBO, right? Like, did it actually get released?
All I know is that the name itself stuck out like a sore thumb, and I was like, I have to watch this, especially because she's the lead of it. So, like, understanding her background, because, like you said, it's a play on the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale, it's crazy. Like, but the other part I noted about this is that she spends the first part of the movie in prison and a lot of the prison scenes. And I think that it's interesting to compare and contrast and to see kind of a precursor to her, which would work in Orange is the New Black later in her career. But you could see how some of those similarities in terms of behaviors were there. We're running hot here because early in her career, she's a lead in a ton of projects. And we hit the largest audience gap in 1990. So 1990 was a big year. And it was But I'm a Cheerleader. And Rigby is taking that one.
I enjoy cult movies and whatnot. I had heard about this one, I'd never seen it, so I was pretty excited to watch. But I'm a Cheerleader is a 1999 satirical sort of dark comedy movie, much in the echoes of John Waters, if you've ever seen any John Waters movies. Not so much Hairspray, but more like the Pink Flamingos, sort of eye-popping color, a lot of just like campiness to go around the whole movie. Natasha Lyonne plays a character named Megan. She's a cheerleader. She's a senior in high school. She's supposed to come from this wholesome family, but immediately 10 minutes into the movie, her parents, because of her obsession with Melissa Etheridge and her, there's a scene where she's making out with her boyfriend, and you see what she's imagining in her head, and she's thinking about her fellow cheerleaders. So it's assuming that she's a lesbian. Her parents assume that she's a lesbian. They plan this intervention where a counselor comes, played by RuPaul, who I wasn't used to seeing RuPaul not in drag, so that was interesting. And they send her to True Directions, which is a rehabilitation camp, or a better term, a gay conversion therapy camp. I wanted to like this movie. I really did. Looking back on it, a lot of critics have had sort of second thoughts about it because they thought it was so campy when they first saw it. And I think the campiness has sort of gone away over time. They sort of see it and now as like intentional. I probably need to watch it again to feel that same way because it was so campy that I couldn't really get over it. But basically, the plot of the movie is Megan, played by Natasha Lyonne. She goes to this camp. She meets another camper, played by Clea Duvall, whose name is Graham, and they fall in love. And basically, it's a short movie. It's 81 minutes. The counselor of the camp is played by Kathy Moriarty, if you've ever seen
Kerrigan from Casper.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Raging Bull, too, she's the love interest in Raging Bull. She was great. The two best characters in the movie, I think, are Natasha Lyonne and Kathy Moriarty. And then the chemistry between Natasha Lyonne and Clea Duvall was awesome. but I just really didn't like the movie. It was so campy.
I tried to give it a shot, and 10 minutes in, I was like, yeah, I'm not in the right mindset for this.
If I was a huge John Waters fan and I saw this movie for the first time, I'd be like so offended. I would sue it for copyright infringement because it's such an homage to Waters that they need to give him like a screenwriting credit almost. Natasha Lyonne, her and Clea Duvall, a few days ago, I was actually lucky to track down an article that they gave an interview to the Criterion Channel where they can't seem to say enough good things about being in this movie. The movie was made in 99, but it wasn't released nationally until 2000. So this is technically the 20th anniversary of the movie. They sing its praises still to this day. And there's something to be said about that. I mean, this was, she had been in American Pie. She'd been in Slums of Beverly Hills, obviously the Woody Allen movie, but this was like her first role where she was like the star. And she does a great job in it. I'm not taking her performance into effect of why I didn't really like the movie.
Kip Pardue, who played Sunshine and Remember the Titans. This was his first movie. And then you had the guy who played Rufio in Hook, and they were love interests. And I was like, my 90s coming together at one time for me. I was like, oh, Sunshine. Oh, okay. Well, this is interesting.
I know that Natasha and Clea Duvall became really good friends after this, and they've actually done a couple roles together since then, but I've never actually seen this movie.
They're still good friends, and that I will give this movie credit because it is so in your face with the LGBTQ ideology. And back then, I mean, 99, obviously
it's pretty rebel. And
it was not in the mainstream at all like it is now. And I think there's something to be said about that. It took a shot.
Absolutely. And both of them have been kind of icons in that they've portrayed those roles throughout their entire careers.
Right.
Talked about this movie. You see Clea Duvall and Melanie Linsky,
yep.
You can hear her accent, which is very rare for her. Typically, she makes her accent go away. But anyway, you see them again with Natasha Lyonne in The Intervention later, way later, when they all have some more money and some more time to do a film together.
And that's directed by Clea Duvall. Did you say that, or did I miss that?
That's right. That's correct. Yep. I think what's so interesting about this movie that I think adds for me to the cringe factor of this film, and I probably don't enjoy it as much, is that LGBTQ teens are portrayed now is absolutely not like this at all. And there's almost so many tropes and stereotypes in this film. I understand why they had to start from there. I mean, it was 1999. I get it. We simply didn't talk about gay teenagers or teenagers in the LGBTQ community like we did then. It's very campy for me for that reason. John Waters did the same thing with gay people, very, very campy, very tons of usage of tropes and stereotypes.
This seemed over the top at some parts, though.
If they were to remake this movie today, it would be darker. It would not. They could not pull off camp because this is no longer considered culturally funny.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Right.
That kind of, for me, I get it. I get how it was a seminal film. I think it didn't age well.
That's a great point. I mentioned how there's something to be said about them taking the risk of doing a movie like this in 99. Interesting fact about it is it was originally rated NC-17, and the director had to cut a lot to make it R. And she, to this day, it sounds like Jamie Babbitt has a bone to pick with the rating commission, because in this Criterion Channel article with Natasha Lyonne and Clea Duvall, they're nothing that they cut was extremely salacious. It was purely just, there was a lesbian scene that she had to cut. And that today obviously would not make it an NC-17 rating, but back then it did. And so to this day, she has an issue with it.
I don't know that it would even be R today.
No, it probably wouldn't.
After 99, this is when her career takes some ups and downs. We see some valleys and some cliffs. That in 99, she's in a movie called The Auteur Theory. You start to see her being able to channel anger. She plays a young documentary filmmaker, and it's essentially the documentary filmmaker is documenting a murder situation with this competition. And she plays the high school documentary filmmaker who is potentially framed to be a murderer. But you start to see some really interesting, maybe just a different approach than you see in some of those earlier roles. 2001, she's in Scary Movie 2. If you don't remember her role in Scary Movie 2, in the first scene with James Wood, she plays Megan the Possessed, where what's his face's mom is under the cover.
Yep.
Andy
you're
Richter.
now fine.
Andy Richter's mom.
Just so you're aware, yeah, that's her role in Scary Movie too. Not much more to say after that.
Oh, that's so good.
When I found that, I was like, oh man, that's hilarious. I had no idea that was Natasha Lyonne. But 2001, she's in the sequel to American Pie, American Pie 2. Also, she was in Kate and Leopold in 01.
What I remember from Kate and Leopold was Ebert and Roper during their review, and my, again, at that time, 8th grade brain watching their review. They were giving a review and then they paused and they're like, also, I think we found a storyline, like a plot issue, where based on the timeline and the time travel that takes place in this, Meg Ryan's committing incest. Miramax came out and was like, ha ha ha, just kidding. And they removed that plot line because Ebert and Roper were correct. The timeline did make it incest because of the time travel. And that's all I know about that movie. I've never seen it.
It's basically a precursor to Enchanted in a lot of ways. Similar premise, departs in a lot of ways, but similar enough. 2002, she's in Zigzag, and then 03, she's in Party Monster, among many cameos.
That's where Macaulay Culkin does a lot of drugs, right?
There's a lot of neon, a lot of drugs.
That was 99 to 09, straight up.
I think it was a precursor, considering it was 2003, and given where we're going to go with her career, this was probably not a lot of acting at the time. It was just a lot of go to the set and just do what you normally do. Lyonne's character was so small because there were so many different cameos in that one. But she was in Die Mommy Die in 2003 as Edith, and I believe, Cori, you said you've seen this.
Yeah, that's a hysterical movie with Jason Priestley. Very campy, very art house, very, I don't even know who the lead is. He's a man in drag who plays the kind of Joan Crawford character. She plays the kind of problematic daughter who's trying to kill off her mom. It's a very campy film, very John Waters. It's something you'd watch maybe with some illegal substances to help your experience out.
You need a spirit guide? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Very funny film. It's a cult classic.
And I think that's a good point. She's in a lot of cult classic films. 04, she's in Blade Trinity, which is widely considered a terrible movie, but if you like Ryan Reynolds, he's pretty funny in that one. At least I think he is. But she plays Summerfield, who is the blind mother who's part of their little gang of vampire hunters, I guess.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous to think that this is technically a Marvel movie.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, technically.
So that kind of blows. But Reynolds going in from to Marvel to DC back to Marvel, so he's all over the place.
The first two Blade films got pretty decent reviews, but this one just went down the shitter. And then 2005, she does some voice work in the movie Robots. And then we hit a bump in the road for her life. So at this point in time, and you all can chime in on this one if you feel like I don't capture this correctly, but had some challenges with heroin. She got Hep C. She had a collapsed lung. Some serious health issues premeditated by a lot of drug use.
She actually got evicted from that apartment by Michael Rappaport. And when I looked into the story behind that, it was at this time, it was in 2005. And he showed up not because of any other reason than the other people in the apartment building were complaining of the noises that were coming out of there. And he's when he pretty much said when he went there that it was a crack den, and she really needed help, and she ended up having to go to the hospital, and she had a pretty serious heroin addiction. She had to go to rehab for it.
Did she go to jail?
Was arrested.
Yeah, she was arrested, and it's pretty funny going back to her dark sense of humor. When you look at the charges that are against her, one of them was the threatened of molestation dog. And when she tried to explain it, she's like, my neighbor was, calling the police on me. And as a joke, I told him I was going to molest his dog. And he put that in the charges. He's like, clearly my humor is not for everyone if he took it seriously.
I know she was arrested for a DUI, careless driving, leaving the scene of an accident. Was it at this time or was it later?
They were all around between 2001 to 2007.
Michael Rappaport wrote an article that I remember reading when I was in my 20s in this old magazine that none of you will probably have heard of called Sassy Magazine.
Nope.
Feminist. It's what all feminists, young feminists would read in the 90s and early 2000s. He wrote It Happened to Me style article where he describes what he walked into the apartment he was renting to her. I remember being so disturbed by it. I mean, she had basically made the whole entire apartment totally inhabitable. Like it was completely trashed, completely ruined. The sad part is, to me, is not just she ruined Michael Rappaport's apartment. She took tuition money. She dropped out of NYU, Tisch School, which is really hard to get into, arguably one of the best drama schools in the country. She took her tuition money and she got a gorgeous apartment on Gramercy Park. Gramercy Park, like there is no way that any mere mortal would ever get an apartment there. And she bought an apartment at like age 18 or something crazy. She financed this apartment and she got evicted from that apartment. She defaulted on her mortgage, got kicked out, and that's why she ended up living in Michael Rappaport's property. She was in the thick of some serious addiction.
Yeah, I think
that's terrible.
She got caught up in it, that's for sure. So this would explain she's got a big gap in projects between 05 and 09. She's getting her life together at that point in time. And it's not until 09 that she jumps back in the game and it ends up being her highest critic score. And it's The Immaculate Conception of Little Dizzle, which is another just champ of a movie title. She's got him combed all over her filmography. Warren's going to talk about this indie one.
There are 9 critic scores on this, and it received an 89, which is ridiculous. And then there are 473 audience scores, which gave it a 71, which is ridiculous. This movie, like, honestly, when it starts, it's you can tell it's like one of those more indie film, and the opening song is like a little catchy. You don't know who the artist is. You're like, oh, maybe I'll get a new favorite band out of this. And the whole thing is this like montage of this bottle going through the ocean. It's got this message in it, and it happens for so long. It was like 3 minutes while like the opening credits were going, and I was like, oh my gosh, just show me what's in the bottle. And so I was like, man, this is pretty deep. Like this guy knows what's going on.
Doesn't it say? What does it say?
Then it gets to this guy, and he's reading a Bible on like this jetty, and he sees it there. And he's like, oh my gosh, a bottle with a message in it. Like Sting was right. And so he goes up and he like grabs the bottle and opens it up. And like the music kind of like crescendos, and he unrolls the piece of paper and it just says, fuck you on it. I laughed so hard because I was like, oh, what a just like an exclamation point on this thing. Like I was so excited for it to be like this profound thing. And then all of a sudden it's just fuck you. And so I was like, this movie's going to rock. There wasn't a single funny thing well, there was one other funny part that happened. The rest of this movie was absolute dog shit. It's like a big acid trip for a lot of it. Yeah. A lot of it is just like, oh, let me do this edgy like camera work. And it looks like a movie that like some amateur guys put together in like the late 90s and not like 2009. And it has a lot of like ridiculous shots at religion.
It did, yeah. It's heavy on that.
It was unnecessary. So that was kind of a turn off. It was just like you were just blasting religion for no reason. It was just like, I'm going to keep taking these shots at it. So Natasha Lyonne plays, she works for this, basically a pharmaceutical testing company, and they're testing this batch of cookies that they make that has this thermo like chemical in it. So when you bite into a cookie, it creates an exothermic reaction, so it tastes like it's oven baked every single time. And I was like, wow, that's genius. But anything that can do that can't be good for you. Sure enough, these things aren't good for people. And it turns out to create guys who ingest them, which are 3 guys who are janitors. They eat them and they get addicted to them. And then they start having like hallucinations and addiction. They like crave salt and fever dreams and stomach issues and all this stuff. And then they give birth to like fishes. They like crap out blue fishes.
Dude, it's so wild, man.
It sounds like a Saturday night for me. I don't know what you guys deal on.
But it really is just, it's a ridiculously terrible movie. I'm really upset that I ended up watching the whole thing. I'm upset that I was like holding my son while I watched a lot of the movie. And I was reading like the 9 reviews because it was super easy to go through all of the fresh reviews. And they use the word, like, Rigby, you threw this out there. when people throw out the word ambitious, it usually means like you gave it your best shot. Like nice try. Sorry, honey, you just missed. These people were throwing it out and being sincere. I didn't get it at all. It was garbage, and nothing about it was entertaining. And so it sucks. And unfortunately, that being her highest rated movie, I wish I'd watched something else. But the Immaculate Conception of Little Dizzle, go to hell.
What people pay for. I did watch it, and I remember sending you the text that said, "Warren, I'm going to be very interested in your review of this movie because it's something."
Yeah, it's a stinker. It's a bomberoo.
Between 2009 2016, she's pretty busy. She's in a lot of different projects. So first and foremost, Outrage, Born in Terror. Michael Madsen's the big name in this one. I only mentioned this one from 2009 because she dies in a really hilarious way. They're running from this group of rednecks led by Michael Madsen, and she gets shot with a sniper rifle bullet, and she's holding one of the guys, and there's a chopper right next to them. Or it's like one of those prop planes with the two propellers right in front, and she literally holds this guy and because she knows she's going to die because of the bullet, literally like leans into the propeller with this guy in her arms because she knows she's going to die. I was like, all right, this is a good payoff to get through 3/4 of this movie and watch her sacrifice herself like that.
That's a pretty badass way to go.
It's just like total like C or B horror death, and I appreciated it. So that's Outrage, Born in Terror. 2011, she's in 444, Last Day on Earth. American Reunion 2011, so the trilogy of American Pie films was hit right there. And
that was number 4.
Was it number 4?
Yeah, because American Wedding was 3.
Oh, you're right. My apologies.
Right.
You're right. The American Reunion, I felt tied up a lot of the loose ends from that series.
In the American universe, it was great. Yeah.
Yep. Listen, you invest in those. Girl Most Likely 2012, she played Allison. GBF 2013, Gay Best Friend.
He's a teacher, tiny role. Teacher who likes cats.
And then, I mean, home run hit time. Orange is the New Black, played the character Nicky for six years, 2013 to 2019. And what I would say is just really took her career to the next level after all the personal issues she had in the mid 2000s.
I agree. She's an interesting character. She's in prison, drug dealing and drug addiction, and the character starts off kind of as like just a womanizer in prison, and Natasha was able to kind of make it more personal to her own experience. And so like in the later seasons, the character has a lot more is a lot more in depth and is more personal.
Her experiences personally, like for example, I remember the story where they show her chest scar,
Yep.
That's her chest scar, and
and that's her actual real life experience.
That's a show I watched probably the first 4 seasons of. Really enjoyed it, and her character is one of those consistent characters throughout. Clutter, 2013, she played a character named Lisa. Also 2013, she's in 7E. The only reason I mention this is she's literally in one scene, and it's her job is to help sell the movie. None of you have probably heard of it, so I don't think they sold it very much, but so I read a review, and the review was hilarious. So like, did Natasha Lyonne just wander on Descent one day? And they're like, oh, you could be a bartender. That's the extent of her role in that one. And then between 2015 and 2016, she's in movies like Sleeping with Other People, Hello, My Name is Doris, Addicted to Fresno, and Yoga Hose.
I should have watched Hello, My Name is Doris. That was her next highest rated one.
It's a good one. I saw it a few years back. I enjoyed it.
Addicted to Fresno. She was great with Judy Greer.
Yeah,
I watched that, and I was surprised at the ratings. I would have rated that movie a lot higher than the fans did. I enjoyed that movie, and hearing us talk about her issue with chemical abuse and other things like that, I thought it was a good movie to kind of bring some of those issues to the surface.
I wholeheartedly agree. I watched it, little indie project, but Judy Greer is really good in that film, and Natasha Lyonne compliments her pretty well. That brings us to largest critic gap, 2016 Anti-Burn. And so I'm covering this one. Largest critic gap on IMDb, it's a 56 and a 4.9, so slightly higher from a critic side. But on Rotten Tomatoes, we're looking at a 70-33. The score has doubled from the critic side to the audience side. That frames it up pretty nicely. The project itself, I would call it an experimental horror film, which was produced by Natasha Lyonne. There's 5 producers, but she was one of them. And once you know the subject matter of the movie, it makes sense that she was a producer on the project. It's written, directed by Danny Perez. He has no other major productions to note based on some of his smaller stuff. He's a pretty experimental director type. It's a really unsettling movie to watch. The visuals are pretty striking. At times I had to like turn away. It's placed in Michigan, and the only reason I know that is because the set designers screwed up the license plate. So you know how some states you have to have a license plate on the front and back of your cars. Michigan is one of those states where you only require the back of the car, and they had Michigan plates on the front and the back of all the cars.
That is an amazing trivia question, by the way. I didn't know that.
That's like 19 states where it's just on the back. I had to look that up because I was like, did things change since then? Given I'm from Michigan, they never say where at in Michigan, but it's somewhere in probably southeast Michigan. Lyonne plays a character named Lou, who's a junkie who wakes up from a party with a strange illness. So again, you can see why she produced this project, given her background. Her and her friends, played by Chloe Sevigny, who is a close friend of hers who helped her get back into the Hollywood game, vouched for her sobriety. They suspect that she might be pregnant. The movie gives you like these weird flashbacks. At the party, some odd things are going on with the lighting, so you're not really sure what happens. They try to keep you guessing on that front. At times, the CGI is appallingly bad, but again, it's a small project, not much money involved, so they did the best what they could. But the music's like crazy bizarre, and it fits the concept pretty well. Throughout the film, Lou, played by Lyonne, she feels increasingly worse. She gets more sick. At one point, her skin starts peeling off in chunks, not like Goldmember style, but like blood with it. You know what I'm talking about? And she, like, literally, I think a tooth falls out at one point. It becomes apparent that people are taking these experimental pregnancy hormones. They don't do it willingly. They basically, through this drug dealer, he gives them these junkie women, and this guy that you learn about later is giving them this weird pregnancy hormone. And it turns out, it turns them into like, basically it's called anti-birth because she births some like weird creature. First it's its head, and the second thing it's in his entire body. And as she passes the body, she literally shrivels up and dies. Spoiler alert.
Oh, you ruined it.
I know. I don't anticipate anybody's going to be mad at me. Spoiled anti-birth for them. If they are, come talk to my publicist. I will say this. Lyonne is very comfortable with Sevigny as one of her like best friend. They have great chemistry as co-stars. Without Lyonne as the lead junkie role, this movie would have sucked. It was decent. I wouldn't give it the 70 side. I wouldn't give it the 33. I'd probably be 55 to 60. The experimental side of it kept me engaged because the story was pretty bizarre, but it was the way they filmed it was interesting enough. But she sells the junkie role. I mean, hook, line, and sinker, and that's what it takes to make the movie work. She's got lots of quips and one-liners, right? That's what you would expect from her at this point in her career. 2016. I would guess most fans who gave it a 33 or 40, they don't like the project, but I bet if you asked them, what do you think of Natasha Lyonne? That's probably the reason they watched in the first place, because she's kind of the catch on that front. So that's anti-birth.
Will you ever watch it again?
With people. I would watch it with like a group of people.
And those people would probably hate you.
If we were drinking, maybe not. I think it provides enough comment. And if you like Natasha Lyonne, maybe. 2016 to 2018, so we're kind of reaching the end of her filmography, at least to modern day. She's in The Intervention as Sarah in 2016.
I enjoyed Intervention. That was directed by Clea Duvall. It was not at all what I expected. You hear Intervention, and based on what we've talked about Natasha Lyonne, I thought it was going to be about drugs, and it's more so about a family members and their significant others doing an intervention with one of the siblings who has a bad relationship, and they're trying to like intervene in that way. Mm-hmm. I actually thought it was enjoyable. I liked it. Charming and sweet, and got some funny parts, and I think it does well with the cast that's there.
Jack Goes Home, 2016. To round out 2017 to 2018, I think following the success of Orange is the New Black on the Netflix platform, she's in 3 Netflix movies. Handsome, a Netflix mystery movie. She plays a detective. Girlfriend's Day, 2017, which you haven't gotten a chance to check out. Highly recommend. Bob Odenkirk is fantastic in that. And A Futile and Stupid Gesture. And that brings us to Show Dogs, 2018, the lowest critic score. James, I am dearly, dearly sorry you had to watch this and review it for the podcast, because I watched it and it hurt my soul.
So I'll give you the plot for this. It's, one of those classic movies where humans and talking animals exist, but the animals and the humans can't communicate. Animals can only communicate to other animals. The main character is a Rottweiler, a police dog named Max, who's voiced by Fast and the Furious star Ludacris.
I know.
So Max needs to go undercover as a show dog in a prestigious dog show with his human partner, who's played by Will Arnett, to stop, animal smuggling scheme that is using this dog show as a front. I know it sounds riveting to this point. Natasha plays a dog groomer named Maddie, who is working to support the undercover operation. The movie itself is made not for children, but a very specific age group, old enough to know that a dog is speaking, but not old enough to know that what the dog is saying isn't funny. So you need to be 5 to 7 to find this movie enjoyable, because you're oh, that's a dog talking. That's funny. And other than that, there are no funny scenes. There was one scene that made me laugh, and it's in the beginning, and Will Arnett is interrogating someone, and Ludacris is behind the glass, the dog, and Will Arnett's interrogating the guy, and he does both the good cop and the bad cop routine. And the guy he's interrogating is what are you, the Lego guy who could spin his head and play both sides? And Will Arnett does the Lego Batman voice, and he goes, "What if I am?" And I'm oh, that's pretty funny. And then the dog looks in the camera and goes, "This is ludicrous." And I was I was like, that was so on the nose. It got me twice, so I'll give him credit where it's due. But after that, no jokes the entire time that made me laugh. And then there's this one scene where I'm sitting there, and again, this is for 5 to 7 year olds. That caught my eye because they make a molestation joke. And it's when this dog is getting waxed for the dog show. And Ludacris is I don't want anyone to touch my genitals. And Stanley Tucci, as a Shih Tzu, coaches him through how to mentally prepare for someone touching his genitals. I was what the fuck? I was where did this come from? And it just moves on. And I was all right, well, that was weird. And so I look up Show Dogs afterwards. I was so how'd the world feel about this? And it's just article after article about that ball touching scene and how it's wildly inappropriate. And the writer of the movie was hey, I didn't write that scene. I wrote my screenplay and it got touched up 13 different writers put on here. I didn't write the ball touching scene. And it got they were talked about getting sued and they had to remove theaters, but it wasn't on the theatrical release, and it is 100% online when you when you stream it. And it just comes out of nowhere. You're when the fuck? This is for the smallest children, and they put that scene in there. Other than that, complete waste of time. No laughs are had. It's just super corny. What can I say about Natasha Lyonne? She looks really friendly with dogs. She's not asked to do anything. No one really here is asked to do anything.
It would have been so great if they had pandered to the 5 to 7 year olds, and then anybody who liked Miss Congeniality, because that's the only movie that you can compare it to.
Right, exactly. So they're trying to do this dog show, and it's oh, this is gonna be funny, but there's no jokes. All the jokes are look, that's a famous person voicing a dog. Isn't it funny that Shaq's a dog? And you're not really. Look, RuPaul is a dog, and the dog's dressed interestingly. Isn't that funny? I'm no little kid knows that joke, and it's not funny. None of this is working at all.
The director apparently has a niche. So he did Scooby-Doo in 2002, Scooby-Doo 2, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, The Smurfs, The Smurfs 2.
Got it.
But he also, no, this one, he did Never Been Kissed.
Okay. Hey, he wanted to break out of his little, try something different.
Crazy.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I'm sorry, James. That one was brutal, man. I did lots of other things while that was going on in the background.
This is ludicrous. Dude, it killed me. I was oh God.
It's very self-aware Rottweiler, James.
Yeah.
So rounding out her film and TV work, 2018, 2020, 2019 brings us Russian Doll, and her character is Nadia, which she received a few. How many Emmy nominations did she get for that show?
She personally got 3. The show itself got 13.
Mm-hmm.
So Russian Doll, I watched this the moment we found out that she was going to be who we were discussing on the podcast, and Rigby had already kind of sang its praises. It is interesting in that it starts off as a show that is funny and quirky and dark humor, but like sci-fi-ish, and that she dies multiple times every episode. And when she dies, it's very similar to like Edge of Tomorrow, Groundhog's Day, where the day starts over again, and she's got to try to figure out why this is happening.
And it's her birthday too, and it's at her party.
And so it starts off as like dark humor that's funny, and she's like, well, how can I just live longer? And she dies in like random ways. Like she, makes it through this one scene where she dies, and then the next time it replays, she's like, all right, so avoids that. And she like trips and falls over a cat and dies. And she's like, fuck, you got to watch out for the cat next time. Like all this random things that are funny. And then about halfway through the series, it takes a very quick turn, and there's like a catalyst that makes it from dark, funny to really introspective, really soul-searching, like a super in-depth, like kind of personal, vulnerable, like analysis of her. You could tell of her own personal life. Huh. And that is where it got me hooked. And so I went from being like, oh, this is kind of funny, to being like, I got to find out.
I think it's an ingenious show. I really do.
And she wrote and directed it, right?
Yeah, writer, director, and producer.
Amy Poehler is an executive. There's a writer and I think an executive producer on it.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a good show. I guarantee if you watch it, you'll binge it in 1 weekend. It just has that. It just has that quality.
The idea of her getting so much love from Emmy nominations, she's come a long way in her career, and to get to this place where she had such a personal stake in it, not just acting, but writing, directing, all these different pieces, and to see her life turn into something successful that people can admire. I think
it's funny too, because if I could picture her being like, this is the role I want to play, like that would be it, like a chain smoking, like vulgar, just like bad attitude. That's the role that I think she would probably want to play the most, because that's her.
I listened to an interview, and she said an inspiration for the show was because she thinks about death almost daily. It's a thing that constantly happens to her.
It's a great show. It truly is.
And then to round it out, she was in 3 I'm going to say decently big movies over the past 2 years, really just 2019, in Honey Boy, Ad Astra, and Uncut Gems.
What is she in Uncut Gems? Do I know that?
She plays Boston player personnel. It's like a voice role, apparently. But my point is, Honey Boy leaped out of the indie circuit and became a pretty prominent film in theaters and had a lot of consideration for award season. She was in these 3 movies, Ad Astra included, but just had really small roles in them. So nothing big, but attaching herself to some successful projects, at least. We didn't hit on a lot of her TV work, but just otherwise, she's had a lot of smaller spots. She was in an episode of New Girl and Law & Order. I think Cori mentioned earlier, New Girl. She was in a couple of episodes of Weeds. She was various characters in Portlandia over 3 to 4 year period. She's married to Fred Armisen, so that makes sense. She was in Simpsons. She was in the show Steven Universe, 3 episodes of Big Mouth, and most recently in Ballmasters 9009.
I absolutely love Big Mouth. And so I was like, which character is she in Big Mouth? And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a hysterical cartoon by Nick Kroll on Netflix. And it's all about kids going through puberty. And so it's like they have like a hormone monster that follows them around and talks to them about them going through puberty. And one of the characters, his name is Jay, and he's like the horniest 9th grader on earth. And
Jason Mantzoukas.
So that's Rafi. And he just bangs like inanimate objects. And Natasha Lyonne is...
It's his pillow.
It's his pillow.
Oh.
Who he ends up having like a pillow baby with, and they have like a tumultuous relationship and shit.
It sounds like she probably had a good time filming that one.
Dude, it's such a funny show.
Doing that voice work. Yeah, she's done some voice work in some different cartoons, which is really cool. That brings us to the end of 35 years. I mean, it's a lot, and we didn't even touch on a number of them, but we'll toss it to Rigby because he's going to hit us with some top performances, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are ones we didn't mention.
This list that I found is from Den of Geek 2019. The Den of Geek is what they call my library at home. This is what they refer to her 6 most underappreciated roles.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
this was before Russian Doll, so it doesn't include Russian Doll. It was actually it was an article like while Russian Doll was being released. Like here are 6 other rules that you should check out.
So 2009 or 2019. Got it.
2019, and it includes television. So I think
Orange
that's
is
a
the New
hint
Black.
that Orange is the New Black is in. So if you can guess the 6 roles that they refer to as underappreciated Natasha Lyonne role, TV and film roles, go ahead.
Give me Slums of Beverly Hills.
Yes.
Nice.
Orange is the New Black.
Yep.
Are they in any order? Or are they just...
No, they're in no order.
Okay. Everyone Says I Love You?
No.
American Pie.
American Pie is in there, yes.
Addicted to Fresno.
Nope.
Oh.
Blade Trinity.
Nope.
But I'm a cheerleader in there.
Yes, it is. Megan Bloomfield is in there. So we're missing 2.
TV or film?
Both film.
Doris.
Both film.
Please don't say white girl.
No. Oh, yes,
Freeway
White Girl.
2.
Yes. Confessions of a Trick Baby is in there.
I'm telling, man. It's something.
Confessions of a Trick Baby is in there. I don't know if I would agree with this, but I haven't seen enough of her stuff to really go against it. But we talked about it tonight. We didn't review it, but we mentioned her role in it, I think.
Kate and Leopold?
No.
Hello, my name is Doris.
Nope.
Girl Most Likely?
Nope.
Intervention?
The Intervention.
It is The Intervention.
Okay.
James.
You guys spoke highly of that, so that makes sense.
But this is a good list to go off of.
I like the underappreciated take.
Yeah, I do
that's
too.
good. It's different.
Show Dog's going to make the cut?
No, it did not.
That's ludicrous.
This is ludicrous.
Oh my God.
That was on Ludacris's top films.
I would be willing to say that Natasha Lyonne is probably the best part of Show Dog. That or Will Arnett. Those two.
Going out on a
That's
ledge
it.
there.
That's all I'm saying. So we're going to get into the Munson meter rankings. What we do here is we rank our actors on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors. We look at longevity. How long have they been in the game? How consistent have they been? We take a look at pop culture impact. Are they recognizable as a name? We look at their acting range. Are they just character actor, or have they taken on different roles? Their awards, imprint, noms, wins. We look at their talents, anything else outside of just acting, writing, producing, directing, singing, whatever those things happen to be. We look at their personal life, right? Are they an absolute saint, Mother Teresa, Gandhi type, or a real turd of a human? And we also look at their comedy chops. So with all that said, we're going to start with James.
I think to tell this story, Natasha Lyonne, fairly rate her career, you have to acknowledge that she started really young and is one of those child actors who went to a dark place in her life. I give her respect on being able to beat that. Not a lot of people can, and being sober now for looks like it's a little over 10 years needs to be commended. A lot of the roles that she's in are not mainstream, hasn't had a lot of mainstream success. But recently it seems like that has started to pick up. I absolutely loved Russian Doll. 13 Emmy nominations, campy, and especially for something that she wrote and is so personal to her, really needs to be acknowledged. I also think Orange is the New Black was a hit. Like you, Kyle, I enjoyed it for the first few seasons. I kind of fell off near the end, but she was great in that. I think she consistently is she plays a tough, no nonsense, intelligent, like as New Yorker as you could possibly be. But she's able to shift it to the tender side and emotional side. I think she's really good at that. And I also think she's very funny. Every interview I've seen of her is like that type of dark humor that I enjoy, that I know makes most people uncomfortable. Like roasting Woody Allen when she was 16 is so funny. That is so clever. Getting arrested and then saying you're going to molest someone's dog and then being like, it's a joke, but I get how it's not funny. And I'm, kind of sucks I'm getting arrested for that. Like that is such a level of dark humor that I think is hysterical. But that being said, she doesn't have the name recognition. She hasn't had a lot of major roles and a lot of performances that have gotten awards for. So I'm going to end up giving her a 53.
Okay. Rigby.
Yeah, James, you hit the nail on the head. Her lack of mainstream films kind of hurts her here. And also, I've never docked anybody points for their personal life, but we've been lucky to sort of talk about some people that didn't really have a lot of that. Because obviously Hollywood is full of it, but the ones we've talked about, I don't think we've run into that yet. So I'm going to dock her points there. I'll be honest. If I hadn't seen Russian Doll, she would definitely get my lowest score. But I do think she's incredibly funny. She's very talented. She's just a little too one-dimensional for me. So I'm going to give her a 65.
Case, you're up next, babe.
Yeah, you guys have hit some of the things that stood out to me. This is one of the weird podcasts where the more I watched of someone, the more I started lowering my score. I don't ever really take knock anybody personally. I think a lot of people deal with addiction issues, and a lot of people have to deal with that stuff. And just because they're famous and they're in movies, I don't think that makes them exempt. So that stuff never really bothers me. It's the one-dimensional roles that I think she gets stuck in, and it's unfortunate because those are also her best roles. I'm going to give her a 56.
Cori, our guest Munson, what do you got?
I'm going to play to her strengths first. I think she is the toughest, most vulnerable actor you've had so far on the pod. I think she's super, super tough, proven herself to be super resilient, and also is so vulnerable. You can see it in roles very, very early on where she played a vulnerable, growing, like developing young woman, to even like Russian Doll to me. And certainly Orange is the New Black. I'm a Cheerleader. Like all of her roles, she plays this just tough, resilient person with a really soft underbelly. And with that, you have a point. She absolutely plays herself and brings herself to the table. If you were her agent, you would say, you're booking Natasha Lyonne. That's who you're booking. All the great things and all the not great things that come from that. So you can't even call her a character actress because some of her roles, they're campy. So there's a character approach to that work. But then there are some other roles that are clearly just straight for her. I think those are some of her honestly better roles, where she just is herself, straightforward, upfront, very dry humor, just a real sense of observation of the world around her. She totally lacks artifice. I really like that a lot. I think that's going to be a turnoff for a lot of people. She's never going to get roles like Natalie Portman because Natalie Portman decided to be something else. She knew she could go a little bit more unique if she played it straight for the early part of her career. And I think for whatever reason, Natasha Lyonne just decided to go a different route. What remains to be seen is if she chose that direction, or if it was chosen for her and she made the best of that career. I really like her. I'm rooting for her, so that probably is going to adjust my score a little bit. I also think that she's unique. I don't know that I could compare her to anybody else, and I appreciate that.
That's a great point.
I do understand kind of the rating here, and so I want to be fair. So I'm going to give her a 66.
Thanks, Cori. All right, so I'm going to jump in. Y'all have hit a lot of my pieces. From watching her interviews, I want to note a few things that I thought were intriguing. Number one, speaking of Andy Richter, we mentioned earlier from Scary Movie 2, in an interview with him and Conan, he had mentioned she's a Scorsese movie in one person. Like in terms of just the overall package of what you get with Natasha Lyonne, there's so many dimensions to what she brings, just from a personal standpoint, her personality. Other things I noticed from her interviews, she did call herself a character actor in an interview like a year and a half ago. So she recognizes it and gets it, and that's what's gotten her a lot of work over the years. So I think she's got some self-awareness on that front. She mentioned she doesn't do summer pictures anymore, filming as an actor in the outdoors during summer months, because she's like, I'll do other jobs, but she's like, my hair, like my Jewish hair, it's just not going to work well with this. So
I think Allison Janney said something similar. She's like, I just don't like working when it's hot.
Like, oh my God. And then she mentioned, she goes, I've done over 100 pictures in my career. And she's like, statistically speaking, how many are going to be good? 4? She's like, I'm not interested in it. So I'm giving her high marks on the comedy side and just her self-awareness as an actor and as a human over the years. If she hadn't brought her life back to where she is now, I would have rated her really low on the personal side, but how much she's been able to transform her life since then, right. I almost give her more credit on that front for being able to take from a child actor that went completely in the dumps to being someone who's, I think, pretty well respected in the industry at this point. Has had a long way to get there. Big score for me on the longevity side, 35 years, still doing work. Yeah, some of them are smaller, but she's still getting work. And there's something to be said there, but I'm giving her a huge hit on the range side. You just don't see enough diversity in the types of roles that she's in, and her award side, other than Russian Doll, it's almost inept. With all that said, I'm going to give her a 57. Warren, finish this out.
I do think the personal side is a huge thing. So many times we hear the stories of the collapse and inevitable deaths of childhood actors or ones who are never able to rebound. And I think you see a huge inverse parabola. It's a huge curve that's swinging back up. So she had all this stuff when she was young. You get this collapse in the middle and this slow climb back up. Orange is the New Black's kind of that catalyst for it, and it's taken her up into Russian Doll. And crazy enough, everything I've heard about Russian Doll, I'm going to basically add it into my score. I've already seen it and I enjoyed it because I really think I will, and I don't want to have to adjust my score. That said, even when we got to this point last week, we're like, who's it gonna be? And I saw Natasha Lyonne. I Googled Natasha Lyonne and was like, oh, okay. So that's name recognition for me. So the name recognition, I mean, I've watched a ton of movies, and granted, when I saw her, I was like, oh, the first thing I said was, she's female Stifler from American Pie. And so that was like, oh shit, what else has she been in? This is absolutely going to suck. And then I saw, oh yeah, she was in Orange and the New Black, which unfortunately only kept my attention for a season. I hadn't seen Russian Doll yet, but, I think... the longevity, it's there. It's a huge 35 years is incredible. The thing I think she could keep riding this wave. I could really see her in some Paul Feig movies. Mm-hmm. Using that humor and everything to really be you got your slapstick Melissa McCarthy or Kristen Wiig, and then you have this more gruff, almost like an Allison Janney from Spy, who's able to throw down with Statham and Jude Law and all that stuff, but then also be the feminine side. Yeah. I think she can do that in those roles. I think 42 for me, and that gives her a 56.5, which puts her 12th ahead of Chris O'Dowd and behind Craig Robin.
So Chris O'Dowd's still sitting with the sad face and his lowest score.
Yep.
Got some projects coming down.
Looking at what's upcoming, obviously, with COVID and stuff being pushed back, a movie that is completed production is called Irresistible. And this is written and directed by Jon Stewart. It's a political comedy starring Steve Carell and Rose Byrne. He plays a liberal who is going to run in a conservative Midwest town. And it's got a stacked cast like Chris Cooper, Will Sasso, Topher Grace, Natasha Lyonne, stuff like that. So it should be pretty fun. She's also in pre-production for The United States versus Billie Holiday. Very interesting cast, but Natasha Lyonne, Garrett Hedlund, Andrew Day is playing Billie Holiday. So it'll be interesting to see how Lee Daniels goes with that one. Pretty much what she's got coming up.
We've got 5 actors we're going to throw on the wheel for our next episode. Those 5 actors are Ellen Page, Henry Winkler, Chris Tucker, Sarah Paulson, and Hope Davis. Cori included. What are our thoughts on those 5 actors? Who do you love? Who do you hate? Who are you kind of indifferent on?
How much Happy Days am I going to have to...
I'm going to say please don't do Ellen Page just so it happens.
Little reverse psychology.
Does reverse psychology work on the wheel?
No, I think it's going to be Chris Tucker. Someone gets to watch Fifth Element and hopefully has the same viewpoint of it as me.
Chris Tucker's made 6 movies total, so I'm pumped.
Well, Hope Davis, how many films has she done? I can only think of one, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
So good luck on her.
Warren dug up Sarah Paulson's categories already, so that would be an easy one for him to just tell us what we're doing.
Yeah, Sarah Paulson is...
I'm going to watch all 13 seasons of Happy Days.
Oh, jeez. Someone gets to watch The Goldfinch.
Oh, good Lord.
And
no, we don't.
Ocean's 8.
That'd be fun.
Someone probably gets to watch 12 Years a Slave, too, right?
Someone will watch Mud or Carol.
I like
Mud. Yeah, I like Mud, too. Of the group, Henry Winkler is the one I would want to cover the most. I think he provides the most wide breadth of coverage.
Why? It's every Adam Sandler movie.
And and I can rewatch a little Barry too.
Yeah, he is the funniest in Arrested Development. Barry Zuckerhorn.
He's also funny in he plays John Ralphio's dad in
yeah, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, that's right. Yeah. So funny.
Sounds like we'll have some fun, whoever it happens to be. Hopefully. Maybe not Hope Davis, but we'll figure it out. Hey, we'll learn lots about her background if it ends up being her. We've reached the apex of this episode. Cori, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thanks. It's been super fun, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Cori.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Cori.
I hope you enjoyed that. That was a lot of
I noticed next week you got a great guest who I like a lot.
Gerke's the man.
I'll let Kyle tell you who it is.
Yeah. Cori, do you have any plugs you want to drop for our audience?
Oh my
any
God.
projects, any mixtapes, anything you're doing over there?
My SoundCloud, no, it's down for the summer. I'm not really working on anything. I think I'm just trying to survive probably the most interesting time in marketing and PR that I've seen in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Not much is going on, man. It's just work, the daily grind.
We appreciate you spend a little bit of time out of the daily grind to be with us because
Of course.
it was a good time. Yeah. We'll bring you back for something. We'll find one along.
Thanks.
Our next podcast is going to land on July 16th. Our featured guest is going to be a gentleman by the name of Mark Gerke. Cori mentioned him, but Mark, the best way to describe Mark's just a big old movie nerd. Whenever he and I go to conferences together, all we talk about is the movies we've seen over the past 6 months. Super well-versed. He works in higher education, but Mark is just he loves chop it up, good dude, and knows a lot about movies. So that's a recipe for guest success, if you ask me. But we'll go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Munsons@Movies. You can catch us on Instagram at Munsons@the-Movies. You can email us, munsons@the-movies@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Any final thoughts from the Munsons?
According to this aptitude test, I should be a professional athlete, a park ranger, or a correctional officer. You just told an inmate in prison that she should become a correctional officer. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Munsons, out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?